78% of Americans like to live paycheck by paycheck, right? One in four workers never have anything saved at the end of each month.
But what we can do as let's say adults, that we can teach our kids very in subtle manners, that they can understand this concept. The first and foremost is the trace and track. So that is the utmost important thing. Regardless of whatever income you have, you must have the trace and track system in place, and that is very easy as well. I've made several videos about this. I call this as borrowed intelligence. If let's say I talk about Robert Kiyosaki, I talked about let's say any other let's say Dave Ramsey or some like famous people who are talking about personal finance in the North America region, you cannot use that kind of wisdom and apply to let's say a country like Pakistan or even India or even Dubai, because though that country is different. US is land of opportunity, and there are so many things which are happening separately there. Can you imagine, like, if I would have got some kind of mentorship or knowledge that you have to have a long-term vision for a stock market, I would have made a lot of gains from that time. This book is actually very good, and one of the lesson from that book is about the luck and the risk. I've been contemplating on using this one, how to get paid for what you know, and this is very important because we undermine ourselves for the knowledge that we have. So it is important, whatever knowledge you have, you should get it out, because nowadays social media is such a powerful tool.
Hello and welcome everyone to my channel. And today we will talk about a very, very important topic, which is around personal finance. And I've invited someone who is not only a great friend of mine, but he is considered to be one of the experts in this field. He has his own YouTube channel where he has close to about 50,000 subscribers. And he teaches personal finance and helps different professionals at different levels of their careers in their personal finance journey. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my great friend Wali Khan. Wali, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamil. Thanks a lot. And this introduction is overwhelming for me, and I'm not considering myself at all any kind of expert in this field, because I'm always learning about this. And I haven't done any courses or anything like. Some people ask me if you have done some formal education, taken formal education of that sort, but that is not the case. So I'm just doing. You can say I'm just explaining whatever I'm experiencing. So it's all about my experiences that I'm sharing on my channel.
So I think Wali, you are being very, very modest because I've seen some of the testimonials on your videos and like how much people are getting advantage from your learning. So thanks for that again. So Wali, first question I have, which is more of an introductory question, is I know you are an engineer. You have been working in like technology related jobs for a very long time. So what got you into personal finance? Tell us a little bit about that.
So Jamil, yes, I'm an engineer by day, and doing YouTube by the evening. So basically, and this personal finance is my passion since very long, because I have seen a lot of people missing the common sense which is around finances and money, and this aggravated during COVID. Because during the COVID, I didn't have any time, anything to work on, because the work was at the back seat, and I was alone at home as well, because my family was stuck back home in Pakistan. So I was having a lot of time, but then I started very late. The triggering point why I started this channel basically is that whenever I talk to people regarding finances, they always talk about having more income or more salary, which is not the case, because I always think about investing a lot of money, and then it will automatically give you returns at later stage of your life. Of course, you need more income, but to just invest, you don't need more money. You just need to have a system in place to make sure that this compounding effect comes. So I always talk about that, and a lot of topics come every day to my knowledge through my YouTube now, because earlier it was very like I was not growing at that pace early on, but still I had so many topics in my mind. But now on daily basis, I get so many topics for small things within your life that I think people should know. And still, I can see a lot of people who are having degrees like MBA or even chartered accountants. They fail to understand very basic things in their lives, and that makes me make the content, and it actually resonate with a lot of people. So I just talk about common sense.
One question I wanted to ask you, Wali, is why do you think schools even today don't teach this? And it's, I mean, whatever you're saying makes a lot of sense. But one thing which always fascinates me is that when we go to our, let's say, primary school or even secondary school, when we are in the high school, there is a lot of focus on math. There is a lot of focus on science and commerce and all of that. But uh, I mean, nowhere near there is any focus on personal finances. And I'm sure there are a lot of people, like myself included, who learn those lessons the hard way. And when life teaches you those lessons, unfortunately those are very expensive lessons. And one of the interesting things I did find out recently is that I think in North America, I think the only state which actually teaches financial literacy as a part of the curriculum, I mean, they've introduced this in Florida in 2022. So it became a part of the legislation that in order to graduate from high school, you must complete half a credit in personal finance. And when the question was being asked to the Floridian government, as to why this is important, they did share some very interesting facts. For example, 78% of Americans like to live paycheck by paycheck, right?
Yeah.
One in four workers never have anything saved at the end of each month. So like 25% of the people in the United States, one of the arguably richest countries in the world,
Yeah.
don't have any, not even a single dollar saved at the end of the month. Another interesting fact that I came across was 36% of Americans said that they wouldn't be able to even cover the cost if they had a $400 emergency, which is such a small amount if
Small
you
amount.
think in the
Yeah.
larger scheme of things, right? And then student loans are a huge problem in the US. Probably you know this already, because
Yeah.
62% of college graduates, based on that response I saw in 2019, owed about $30,000 in student loans in the US. So, given that you have done like a lot of deep dive into this subject, why do you think schools or colleges don't teach this?
So I don't have this answer actually, because there is no sense to me as to why the government of the levels of, let's say, the US, or the big five countries, or any other developing countries, let alone like the developing nations like India or Pakistan, those countries are not contributing towards the education of this important life skill. I have no idea why it's not happening. Uh, some people say it's vested interest, but I'm not sure. I'm not into conspiracy theories, so I'm not gonna comment on that. But what we can do as let's say adults, and as let's say dads or mothers, that we can teach our kids very in subtle manners, that they can understand this concept. So I'll just give you an example. What happened last summers, when we went out to shop around for the school bags of for our kids, and I live in Dubai basically. So here everything is flashy and everything is in trend. Also, kids tend to be like that, and they want to spend that kind of money because, of course, they are always watching their peers spending that kind of money just for a school bag. I'm just gonna give you an example. It was costing me around 300 to 600 dirhams for a school bag, which if it's a good quality bag, it can last for 2 3 years as well. So I told my kids not to go for that kind of brand, or let's say not that kind of experience for the school bag, but they were not agreeing to it. So what I did, I pitched them that, okay, I'm going to give you a budget of 300 dirhams per kid, and if you take that, it's fine. You want to buy that bag, it's fine with me. You can buy that bag, and I won't say anything to you, but it's your money. You can do anything with that. So and then I just told them what is the possibility with 300 dirhams. They can just keep it with them, spend as they like over the period of next 2 3 months, or they can just buy that bag, or they can buy 100 dirhams bag, and then it can carry on for the let's say next 2 years. My elder two sons, they agreed to it, and they thought about it. The first one actually was immediately, he said, I didn't want the bag anyway, so it's fine with me. 300 dirhams is fine, and I can keep my old bag as well. The younger one, the middle one, he was about like, okay, he thought about that for half an hour, and he was roaming around the shop for a long time, and he was not able to make up his mind. But when he saw the eldest brother like taking the decision as quick, he was, after half an hour of deliberation, he said, okay, I'm not gonna buy this bag anyways, because that was for some footballer or something like that. So he was into football, so he wanted that bag badly. But then he thought that, okay, I have got my friends at school, some of them bring 3 years old bag, so I don't need that kind of bag, so I'm gonna be okay with this, and just give me 300 dirhams right away. I said, okay, just take your money and that's it. But the younger one, the youngest one actually, he was very confused, and he was not able to understand what he can do with that 300 dirhams. So he was actually, like, he was 8 years old at that time. So of course you have to inculcate this behavior, or this soft skill into the kids yourself. uh, and I saw that after this episode, my kids, actually, I was thinking about making a video with my kids about this whole incident, because I've seen a lot of change just through this one episode of teaching them how to take care of their own money. Because once they have this kind of money themselves, and you try to build a system around in your home as well, then it definitely gives them an idea what to do with their money, and how not to spend the money in the way that actually this we are in the capitalist environment right now, and everything is revolving around spending. So we should not be spending that kind of money. So I don't have the answer to why the schools are not teaching personal finance. I have seen in Australia, I have seen one of my colleague, not colleague, but one of my class fellows is sharing one of the course textbook of grade 10, I guess. And in that, they're talking about stock market. They're talking about the ratios like PE ratio and those kind of stuff. I was really surprised, because I haven't seen this happening in, at least in the UAE. I haven't seen this happening in UK as well. So I'm not sure where are they getting this information that they have to inculcate now. But it's good actually. Now it is coming, as you said, Florida itself is an example. So maybe in future we can see more governments coming into it. But as of now, until people are not actually, if they're not into this, then you can take advantage of this. As capitalist as I can be, you can take advantage of that in any sense. Like, you can teach them, and they can pay for you for that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to educate people, and I'm trying to monetize that skill of mine.
So on that point, and thanks for sharing. I think that's a great story, because even with my kids, I've got two boys, and I did a very interesting like experiment with both of them, because they are very different characters, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of as they, for example, they go and they would visit places. Sometimes on Eid, as we know, in our culture, the elders would like to give them Eid and all that stuff. So I encourage them to actually save it and manage that money, like how they're going to spend it. And being, they both of them being very different characters. One of them has a very good habit of saving and calculating and how he wants to manage his money, and the other one is a little bit more kind of on the,
On the
he's more
go.
the spending side. But that I
Hmm.
think the point is that from very early age, that financial responsibility, the creating of, like, for example, you could have given your kids those 600 dirhams and they would have bought up the bag, and story was over,
Yeah.
right? But the
Yeah.
fact that now they owned that money and they had the autonomy on how they want to use that money, I'm sure that must have given them like thought, okay, I could spend this money in X number of ways, right? So that's the key thing. So on that point, Wally, my next question to you is, um, as you talk to a lot of adults and professionals in different age groups, what are some of the key skills you see lacking, as people don't think about this as much as they should? So if you could just point out like two or three for us, in terms of, if I'm, let's say, a 22-year-old fresh graduate right now, what are the two or three skills I need to build in order to manage my personal finances better?
Yeah. So the first and foremost is the trace and track. So that is the utmost important thing. Regardless of whatever income you have, you must have the trace and track system in place, and that is very easy as well. I've made several videos about this specific thing, because I have seen, if you have the habit of spending more, until you don't recognize that, it will not improve automatically. You have to see over the long period of time. Let's say 6 months. Give yourself a 6 months period and see where your expenses are being happening. And what I do normally is maintain a Google sheet Google Sheet, because earlier I was doing it on the Excel sheet. Excel sheet is not, most of the time it's not accessible apart from your own computer. So Google Sheet is the one which is accessible from your phone, from your, let's say, laptop, from your any device, any kind of platform you can think of, and keep it very simple. I've seen people talking about different apps. I don't use any kind of app. I just use Google Sheet because it will help me export the data, and eventually I do my analysis on Excel. So for anybody who is starting to and thinking about starting to improve their finances, they should go trace and track first, because even the smallest amount, by the way, I have talked about this earlier as well, that we should not talk about credit card as a line item in your expenses. You should not talk about as a line item. This should be as you can say that whatever expenses you're doing in credit card, that should be the line item, not the credit card. So if somebody tells me that, okay, I've got a 3000 dirhams of credit card bill, this is one thing which I cannot do anything about. First and foremost, what is the breakdown of that 4000 or 3000 dirhams that they're spending? So they should not consider 3000 dirham as a line item for credit card. So credit card so if you're starting, even 10,000 10 dirhams, or let's say $2, $3, this kind of money should also be traced and tracked. And once you do it over the long period of time, making different categories out of it, you will see where your money is going. So this is the first and foremost for anybody who is starting their journey. Secondly, if you're talking about investments, don't think about investing only in the real estate. So what I've seen, and I've experienced myself as well until last 3 4 years, that we think real estate is the only ultimate investment avenue throughout. I mean, we have seen our parents, we have seen our peers, we have seen our whoever we meet. This is the ultimate avenue for investment. So we've got a lot of opportunities in stocks, and in stocks, even if you're in a third world country, and if you're living in a country like, let's say, Pakistan, where we have a issue of devaluation and whatnot. But the problem is, if you don't if you, and eventually if you leave for a better country and you don't have that experience back home in Pakistan, let's say, then you won't be able to understand the wider picture once you go, let's say, and invest in the US stock. So the first, I think, without going into properties, you should go into the stocks and start small. Like, start, let's say, $10, $100, whatever your fund money is, for the beginning, for the, let's say, for initial 6 months. And then once you start recognizing what how market works, and 6 months is a very small time that you can understand how the stock market works, but still you have a lot of understanding. You have a lot of understanding for the terminologies as well. Don't go big, go small, and keep on investing a small amount. I don't want to go into technical things here, but the stock market should be the one where should be the place where you should be investing your most of the money. Not most of the money, but you should be taking most of your experience of investing. It should be coming from the investing in the stock market. So these two things are very important: trace and track, and thinking outside the real estate market for the investment. There are other things as well. Of course, you have to utilize your own time properly. You should not waste your time. You should not be watching Netflix all the time, because watching Netflix not only drains your money, apart from that, it drains your time. And time is actually the most important thing that we all miss sometime when we are talking about wealth. So time is basically the wealth. And yeah, that's about it. If you do these three basic things, I'm sure your financial health will be much better.
Yeah, I think that that's a fantastic point, Wali. And I think one of the reasons why people stay away from stocks in a lot of different regions, especially like, if I talk about uh, not so much the Middle East, but South Asia, is a lot of people perceive stocks as gambling, which is absolutely incorrect. It's a false
Yes.
conception, because what people typically think is that, oh, this is all about, I'm going to put $5 today and it's going to become $10 tomorrow. No, that's not how it works, right? Sometimes,
Yes.
yes, there are people who do day trading for a living. That's a very different story. But one concept which I learned as I invested in stocks was this concept called dollar cost averaging, right? That you find the right stocks, the stable stocks, and then over time, you, like you mentioned, you do those small investments and they grow over time. Because if you look at the 50-year chart for any index, whether it's S&P 500 or
Yes.
NASDAQ or Canadian TSX, whatever, they have all grown over time, right? So it's basically,
Yes.
you are not only inflation protecting your savings, but at the same time, you are also trying to
Uh,
get some good
Yeah,
savings.
averaging out, and also you're getting the dividends as well. It's not only there are so many misconcepts for the stocks, by the way. You can even invest in real estate through the stocks, through the REITs. So there are so many ways that you can invest in the stock market, because when I talk to people, and again I would say that highly educated people, and when I talk to them about general investment, not about stocks, general investments. See, I'll give you an example. One of my colleague, I was telling him that I'm gonna make a video on this topic separately, because he was mentioning something which is very common for me. And after let's say for last 3 4 years, when I've been making such content, it's very like it's a very common thing that nobody should be missing this. But still, he was showing me one of the product which was giving 6% return, but that 6% was giving in the return was maturing in 6 months. So I told him it's not the 6% return is not in 6 months. The 6% return is annualized, and then you will get the return on let's say after 6 months. So that is 3% return. So this is a very common thing, and he's a MBA, by the way. He's an engineer as well as an MBA. So coming these kind of things from such kind of people is really surprising still for me. And I tell them that if you're subscribed to my channel, you should not be talking about these kind of things such a way. So this is a very small example. There are so many examples that people miss out, and when I tell them, they think I'm doing some favor to them, but it's for me it's a very common thing, and actually it's a very common thing, but definitely common sense is missing nowadays.
Absolutely. And even the point you made about credit card is such an important one. A shockingly high number of Canadians basically rely on credit card as a source of their liquidity, which means that they don't end up paying their entire credit card bill at the end of the month, which is very shocking to me. Because if you think about it, even right now, let's say you take your mortgage, which is at a very high interest rate at the moment, but the highest you're talking about is 5 6%, right? Credit card debt is basically 22%. It's crazy. And I don't think it's any better whether you go to Dubai or whether you are in India or you are in the US, right? It's kind of
No,
as
no, it's in Dubai, it's 45%. For the first time, HSBC sent an SMS telling us that it is 45%. I was shocked to see that SMS. I made a video about that. How come they're telling so bluntly that it's 45%? Otherwise, normally what they say is it's 4%, 3%, because they will tell you only the monthly rates, but they're not going to tell you the full picture of annual return. I mean, the penalty.
So Wali, a good segue into my next point or my next question to you is, as you talk to people across US, Canada, Dubai, Pakistan, India, do you think that financial literacy is different by region, or you kind of see similar trends across the board?
No, no, it's completely different, and one should not. I call this as borrowed intelligence. If let's say I talk about Robert Kiyosaki, I talked about, let's say, any other, let's say Dave Ramsey, or like famous people who are talking about personal finance in the North America region. You cannot use that kind of wisdom and apply to, let's say, a country like Pakistan or even India or even Dubai, because though that country is different. US is land of opportunity, and there are so many things which are happening separately there. But of course, there are a lot of common things as well that you should take the cue from. But you cannot directly implement those things that these guys are talking about. Warren Buffett, what he talks about the stock, you cannot apply those things to let's say a stock in Pakistan. So yes, the investors are definitely thinking differently all over the place. One thing is common. I have seen common people either from the US or, let's say, Dubai or India, or not so much for India for some reason, but from Pakistan, all talk about properties or real estate. But I have seen people from India there, and some kind of people from the US as well. They talk about more stocks. So there is a different kind of mentality. And a country like Pakistan, they talk about gold as well, because we have a hyperinflation kind of scenario going on. Not hyperinflation, but actually very high inflation going on in Pakistan. So whatever you're investing in the base currency of PKR, it will erode very fast in case it's not giving you inflation adjusted returns. So people talk about gold. People talk about gold all over the world. Let's say in India they talk about gold, but now gold has been lackluster. So of course they are not talking about too much of that. Just recently there was a rally in gold, and then again Indians were all out after it. So So it's definitely region by region. One thing is common: real estate is very common. Either you go in India or in Pakistan or UAE or let's say anywhere in the world. Real estate is very common denominator once you talk about investment with different kind of people. Apart from that, misconceptions are very common as well. So I haven't seen. By the way, I know people from, let's say, Pakistan are less educated, let's say, in totality, but the same kind of mistakes that the people from, let's say, Pakistan or any other third world country are doing, the same kind of mistakes are being done are being done by, let's say, people from North America. As you said, the credit card debt is no brainer for anybody to miss out any credit card payment. But if somebody is doing that and somebody educated is doing that, it's a silly mistake by them or a grave mistake by them. So I think mistakes and mentality is almost the same overall, but still there are some things that distinguish one person from the other or one region from the other.
Excellent. So one question on just to build a segue on this one, Wali, is that if you were, if you had a time machine and you had the ability to go back, to a time when you were 20 years old, would you do something different?
Of course, as I said before, only until 4 years back, let's say, I was introduced with the concept of stock market. So can you imagine, like, even with a country like Pakistan, if I've invested this money for when I was graduating, after I graduated, actually I have invested some of my income into different residential projects which were failed, or let's say which were okay. I mean, they gave some results, but still they were not as good as they would have been. I would have been in stocks, and if I would have started investing in the stock at that time, I did that. Actually, I invested in mutual funds, but because of lack of knowledge, I didn't know that I had to be a long runner. In mutual funds, when I invested, the stock market crashed and the funds value also crashed, I think almost 30-35%, and I sold it out. And that was back in 2008 or maybe 7. So can you imagine, like, if I would have got some kind of mentorship or knowledge that you have to have a long term vision for a stock market, I would have made a lot of gains from that time. But I didn't have that, and I wasted that money investing into such, let's say, Ponzi schemes of the real estate, and then I lost that money as well. Or even if the real estate came to me, it was not of that kind of return. So one thing is for sure, I should have gone back and start investing in the stock market. I should have learned a lot. And when I was, and then again, in 2011, when I had money, I again started investing in the stock market, but that time through trading, through options. So I lost around $11,000 in 2011 2012. And again, that's again a long story. So if I didn't had this all I mean if I had these two bad experiences, but at the same time somebody was there to tell me that okay, these things happen, but don't worry about them, and look at a longer or bigger picture. Because at that time when I was trading, I was only looking at, let's say, 2 days picture or 3 days picture, not more than that. So if somebody would have told me this, it would have been a blessing at that time. But anyways, now I'm trying to educate people that look, you should have to look at a larger picture, not just 2-3 days or 2-3 months or even sometimes years.
Yeah. One thing I want to actually build on what you said, Wali, is that, and this is what I learned after moving to North America, right? Because I think um, system in which you operate also plays a huge difference, right? For example, when I was in Dubai, you have a lot of disposable income, and a lot of people, that I speak to now, even in Canada, who still have that desire that, oh, I wish I could go back to Dubai. Is when I ask them, okay, what is the one reason? The
Yeah.
first reason they give me is, okay, we had so much income, we felt much richer. uh, the systems in North America, basically, especially in Canada, but even in the US, I would say, if you are working for an organization, they almost force you to stay in that mutual fund stock space through your
Yes.
retirement funds, right? And those
Yes.
retirement
Yes.
funds, by the way, typically are logged in. You cannot touch them
Yes.
unless you have, I think the only condition in Canada where you can touch your retirement funds is if you have a life threatening illness. For example, god forbid, you have cancer or something like that. Only then you can break those funds. Otherwise, they are logged in at least until you turn 55 or 60. And even that, like, the return and the amount of money you can unlock depends. For example, if you want to start withdrawing when you are 55, you almost get nothing. But when you could turn 60 and 65, that's when you start pulling that out. But that's, and initially I used to get really frustrated, right? Because a big part of my, let's say, paycheck used to go in these retirement funds and all of that. And you're almost also enticed by it, because some companies also make it very lucrative for you to invest. Because, for example, there are organizations I know where if you would put $1 into your retirement, they would actually match it up by 200%. So basically, your $1 becomes $3, and then add to it the dollar cost averaging and the growth that you are getting, right? So while initially it was very frustrating from me, and it was like a cultural, like a financial shock when I moved from Dubai, but after a few years, I realized that this is an excellent model, because it's forcing me to save for a time when I will not have income, right? So if physically I'm able by that age, that's a blessing. I could be working. But what if I have, God forbid, a terminal illness or something like that? At that age, I'll need those funds. So I think in the West, they have built a system that kind of forces you to invest in those mutual funds,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah, actually, there are two things I want to just expand on this. There is one thing is about this. While I'm living in Dubai in UAE, they have started implementing these kind of things. They have the concept of gratuity here. So the concept of gratuity is that you just there is a part of salary which goes into that fund, and that keeps on there until you, let's say, resign or you're let go. So that fund now is now they are investing at in different places, riskier as well as less riskier. So you have some kind of concept now in this region as well, that this is a possibility as well, that you can invest your gratuity. This is one thing. Second thing is that they have introduced now employee there is one insurance scheme they have like introduced, where it's a mandatory scheme. You have to invest a very small amount, let's say 60 dirhams for a year, and that will make sure that, let's say, if you are let go of from your company, you will be given 3 months of basic salary into your account, no questions asked. So this is something which they are working on, some kind of a pathway to that kind of thing. But having said that, the problem is still, if you're living in the Middle East, you are still on your own. So what I tell everybody, that if you're living in this country and you're on a certain pay scale, let's say you're talking about if you're talking about Canada, you're talking about, let's say, $120,000 dollars per year, which is a uh, in Canadian terms, it's not that bad. It's good, so good that you will fall into, let's say, 30-35% tax bracket, maybe in that kind of 120,000
Yeah.
thing. If you're making this kind of money, let's say in the UAE, you are not going to pay any kind of taxes to the government. You should pay that kind of tax to yourself. So you should be trying to save and invest 35 or 30% of that income, because the person who is getting $120,000 after tax in Canada, he will still try to save something. But if you're living in Dubai, where there is no tax, and you, let's say, you're given all kind of opportunities from your company, all kind of facilities from your company, then you are wasting your that 35 to 40% of the tax money that you should have been saving and investing. So there are a lot of things. This is a mind game, basically. If you start playing this game and think about it as a game, then it will be much better and much more fun, let's say, you can say that. Otherwise, you will not I would say you will not gain anything living in this country for a long period of time, even though you're getting tax free income.
Last question to you, Wali, is in terms of resources, if people want to get more skillful on this area of personal finance, any resources that you could recommend? This may be a good opportunity for you to also talk a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, of course. Actually, I have got two channels. One is in English, one is in Urdu. Of course, Urdu channel is much more grown away now. Like it's having 50,000 subscribers. My English channel is only 100, not 100,000. Hopefully, it will be, but 1,000 subscribers as of now. Apart from that, I don't read a lot of books, but whatever books that I have read is like Rich Dad Poor Dad and A Psychology of Money through by Morgan Housel. This book is actually very good, and one of the the lesson from that book is about the luck and the risk. I'll talk about that in a bit. But one thing is important to note, that once you're reading these kind of authors, you should understand that you're not living in, if you're not living in northern, let's say North America, or let's say Europe, or these kind of countries, you should try to simulate to your own environment. It's not like everything that you read you can implement that. And the other thing is that this also I need to talk to you, that an author like Robert Kiyosaki, who was a visionary at that time, maybe when he was writing this book of Rich Dad Poor Dad. But if you follow him now, he's completely different, and he's talking about something which is, I actually not endorse what he's talking about. He's talking about selling all the stocks. He's talking about taking out money from the banks because they are going to be bankrupted very soon. He's talking about only investing in gold. He's talking about selling his own courses. By the way, Robert Kiyosaki's courses, if you go in a free seminar, it costs nothing. But then he's going to upsell $500 course. He's going to upsell $12,000 course, and then he's going to upsell $45,000 course. And if people say that, okay, I don't have that kind of money, he will tell you, okay, do you have the credit card? They say that we don't have this kind of limit. He ask them to call the bank and tell the people how to increase the limits.
Oh
So
boy.
Robert Kiyosaki is kind of a scam now. So one should really see who are their mentors and who are they following. So there should be a common sense all the time. I'm telling everybody that, okay, listen to me as well, but use your own mind, because it's your own money. So your own money is not going to be, you cannot outsource your wealth building. So it is very important, whatever you're listening, whatever you're there are a lot of podcasts as well, there are a lot of YouTube resources as well. Like I watch Graham Stephan, I watch Dave Ramsey, I watch a lot of Indian YouTubers as well. But again, your own decision has to be your own. You cannot blame anybody for your own downfall. So and as there was a one example I would definitely like to give. I think from Morgan Housel, I read about luck. So whenever you're lucky, whenever things are going up, it will eventually go up, and you think that you're lucky, or let's say you think that you are intelligent, but it's not like the case. Because I know of people, I know of one person here in Dubai. He purchased a property, and he took a risk during the COVID. That property was around 2.7 million dirhams, and now it's around let's say 4.7, something like that. And he took it on mortgage. So imagine if somebody got this kind of deal, and he thought that I'm a genius, and I can do it again. And if he tries to do it again in this environment, I'm sure he's going to fail. So you should understand where you found your luck, and where you should be thinking about like your own system. So making system around your investments is very important. Luck sometimes work, sometimes doesn't. So one should not rely on luck all the time. If you're lucky one time, it's not that every time you get lucky. So this is very important. I learned this, by the way, from Morgan Housel itself. So there are a lot of resources, but one has to implement or apply their own knowledge to such kind of literature or books.
Yeah, I must say that you probably learned this from Morgan Housel. I actually learned this the hard way. When I moved to Canada, like the real estate was booming, right? And like you start investing your first house, and then you go into your like investment property one, two, and so on, so forth. But then at one point in time, I realized that this game is not going to go forever. Like so while I was lucky for a number of years and I made some good equity, but at the same time you could that as soon as that wind starts blowing the other way,
Yeah,
you could be on the receiving end of that. And I think one of the best books I kind of which really changed my mind on this whole household debt and investment scenario is basically a book called The House of Debt by Atif Mia and Amir Sufi. I mean, Atif Mia is probably very well known in Pakistan because he often comments on the economic situation in the country and so on. But that book is amazing because they actually went back and analyzed exactly what happened in the 2008 crisis, which I know like now there have been a lot of movies made on that whole subprime
hmm,
crisis that happened with the real estate in the US and all of that. Luckily in the US, hopefully this time it's not going to be as bad as the 2009 crisis. But if you read that book, that basically reinforces the point you made at the very beginning of this podcast that real estate should be just one of the many buckets where you should
yeah,
park your investment. And it should not be like, you take all your equity and all your savings and you put in the real estate bucket, because the moment the interest rates will start going up or something else happens around the world, which is not favorable for the housing market, then you could be in a very tough situation. So
And
absolutely.
nowadays, yeah, and nowadays not only investments, you again, as I said before, the time is very important, and I would definitely recommend this book. I haven't read this completely. I've been contemplating on using this one, how to get paid for what you know. And this is very important because we undermine ourselves for the knowledge that we have. So it is important, whatever knowledge you have, you should get it out, because nowadays social media is such a powerful tool. You can do anything with this tool, and there is always an audience for you. So you one should not like undermine themselves, saying that who will listen to me, but there is an audience all the time for anybody, anyone who is providing any kind of value for that
I think monetizing one skill is a whole other topic, Wally, which I
topic. Yes.
I think I'm going to schedule a separate podcast with you, probably
Yeah.
in the new year now, because now we are approaching the end of the year. So I mean, it was great to talk to you, Wally. As usual, it's a pleasure, and thanks for sharing all the valuable knowledge for the fantastic conversation. I want to wish
Same
you
here.
and your family happy New Year in advance, and then
Same here. Happy New Year.
let's stay in touch. And yeah, I'm sure this podcast will be very helpful for the audience.